evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council, leadership team, and guests. Thanks very much for joining us on this special night. It's Tuesday after the Easter weekend, 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting of the 19th of April to order at 6 p.m. And prior to advancing on to our agenda, I would welcome council and the community to join me with our Indigenous land acknowledgement. We'd like again to start tonight's meeting by expressing our gratitude and acknowledging the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples. So personally, we are connecting today from Tillsonburg, Ontario, which is an area of significance for many Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. Tillsonburg is located on the traditional territories of Indigenous people and is covered by the Between the Lakes Treaty Number 3 of 1792. As we gather on the traditional territory of Indigenous people, dating back countless generations, we acknowledge the Ashinabek, the Haudenosaunee, and the Attawadarun people, showing respect for the long-standing relationships that Indigenous nations have to this land as they are the original caretakers. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you take roll call of council members present, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Molnar. Deputy Mayor Barris.
Present.
Councillor Esseltine.
Present.
Councillor Govesi.
Present.
Councillor Luciani.
Present.
Councillor Parker.
Present.
And Councillor Rosehart.
Present.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Acknowledging that we have a full attendance. Thanks very much. We will now move to the adoption of the agenda for this evening's meeting. And Councillor Parker, I believe you have that, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine that the agenda is prepared for the council meeting of April 19th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion for members of council. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? The resolution is carried. Now with that agenda set for this evening's meeting, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from members present? Seeing none, we'll advance to the adoption of the council minutes from our previous meeting of the 28th of March. Councillor Rosehart, you have a resolution, please?
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Govesi, that the minutes of the council meeting held on March 28, 2022 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments regarding those minutes? Any errors or omissions? We'll call the question for the receipt as information. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolutions carried. Thanks very much. Just before advancing with our agenda, I remind us all and thank you to the community volunteers and regional leadership, the Canadian Cancer Society, that this April is again Daffodil Campaign. For more than 70 years, the Canadian Cancer Society has celebrated the Daffodil Campaign in spring. The daffodil is resilient. It is the first flower to bloom in the spring, and for those living with cancer, it's a symbol of strength, courage, and hope. This April, the Association Society invites everyone in the community to rally around this symbol to provide hope to people affected by cancer. So we're inviting all members of our community to participate in the Daffodil Campaign by publicly displaying a daffodil pin throughout the entire month of April. Your support of our Daffodil Campaign helps us unite Canadians in a common cause and reminds us that cancer is a priority. Your recognition encourages us and supports our countless volunteers across Canada who every year commit to supporting people affected by cancer, and recognizing that valuable resource can be accessed online at cancerconnection.ca. Thank you. There are no presentations, public meetings, planning applications, or delegations this evening. Brief comments on update in the community regarding COVID-19, the opportunity for questions or comments from members of council as well, and perhaps opportunity later on the agenda that there's a specific item that there'll be additional material being able to be discussed. That the COVID-19 bulletin continues to be updated once a week, and it's updated more regularly if any new and important information is shared, both from the province of Ontario and Southwest Public Health. We maintain our resource page as information becomes available. You can continue to submit questions and concerns, ideas, suggestions, and comments to COVID-19 at tillsonburg.ca. Access to additional information is always available at swpublichealth.ca, which includes the most recent positive case numbers, which are reflective of some increasing numbers across the region, primarily due to the Omicron variant. Where there are currently 441 confirmed ongoing cases as of noon today, which was an increase of 164 since the last time we talked. Encouraging in our own municipality, while there are 36 confirmed cases in that same span of time, there's been no change to that number. And currently there are 3 hospitalizations in the region, which is down 8. And there are, though, however, 3 active institutional outbreaks, which is an increase of 4 since the last time we reported, including 2 in Tillsonburg at Harvest Crossing and Tillsonburg District Memorial Hospital. I think importantly, and as shared and as our communications online have indicated as well, that the province is, as of the 27th of March, had moved their declaration away from the Reopening of Ontario Act with a 30-day notification period, will be then effective the 27th of April. Most, if not all, provincial restrictions in the emergency order, that's the original Emergency Management Civil Prevention Act and the Reopening of Ontario Act, will expire. And it has already been recognized as some of the operational aspects of our own facilities here in the town of Tillsonburg. And a quiet reminder to both council members, our leadership team, and the members of our community that all remaining measures, directives, and orders also end as per the Chief Medical Officer of Health of the province of Ontario, and with no local or regionalized directives from the Southwest Public Health Medical Officer are expected, and any localized direction would ultimately need to be eventually ratified by the provincial Chief Medical Officer of Health. And importantly, though, as suggested by our public health leaders, is it's always remains valuable to get a shot in your arm, even if it is your first and then your second or your third and now your fourth, which is ramping up. Access available on a daily basis. Walk-in is provided for both Woodstock and St. Thomas. The next walk-in clinic in Tillsonburg at the community center at 45 Hardy Ave is April the 28th between 10 a.m. 3 p.m. We thank Public Health for the continuing outreach and our own team at the complex for assisting in that facilitation. I know they've been great supporters and provide a very seamless opportunity. Those are the general comments regarding that. Are there any questions or comments from members of council or from leadership team? Deputy Mayor, please.
Question, Mayor. A lot of people are watching this at home, and even myself, I'm not sure of the answer. Those of us who have had our third, do you know the time frame from the third to the last several months, several weeks? Do you have that at hand? Some people want to know if they can go get their fourth, but how close are they to having their third?
Yeah, and well, thanks for the question, and I can confirm that there is an identified time frame. I would be less than responsible to say a time frame and it not be correct. And it would be on Southwest Public Health, swpublichealth.ca. First page, click on vaccine eligibility. There is, thanks for the very important question, because there is a time frame. It's a defined time frame. I was out of town on municipal business the other day, arrived back into Woodstock, and took advantage of just going over to Goff Hall, walking in. Within 5 minutes, I had already been registered without an appointment and received a 4th dose. So that had to do with recognizing that my 3rd dose was beyond that identified time frame. So excellent question, and maybe our own communications team will ensure that that's included in the next update as well, Deputy. Maybe by the end of the meeting, I'll have an update for you. It's a great question. And there is a definitive answer to that question. Anything further? We'll move on to the balance of the agenda. Thanks, everyone. There's information items, correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding community housing renewal strategy, and the Minister of Solicitor General, Soya Jones, regarding the EMCPA and compliance here in Tillsonburg. Councillor Luciani, you have that resolution, please.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Govesi that the correspondence items received by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing dated March 31st, 2022, and the Ministry of the Solicitor General dated March 31st, 2022 be received as information.
Thank you. Discussion on either of those 2 items? And I am aware of that upon receipt and asking it to be on the agenda, that the first item will form part of an agenda for the next Affordable and Attainable Housing Committee of Council. And we'll call that question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. Thank you. We move to departmental reports, section 14 of the agenda. Under 14.3, there's a resolution regarding an agreement with the province of Ontario regarding relief from forfeiture agreement, Quarterline Road here in Tillsonburg widening. Deputy Mayor, you have that, please?
I do. It's moved by myself, excuse me, seconded by Councillor Parker, that a bylaw be brought forward to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Government and Consumer Services for the lands described as Block 25 in Plan 41M155 and the Block 25 Plan 41M155 be deemed to be part of the Quarter Town Line Municipal Road Allowance.
Thank you, Deputy. Discussion to that resolution from members of council? Seeing none, we'll call that question. All those in favor? That resolution is carried. Thanks very much. We advance to finance. There's a report here, summary report provided by Ministry of Finance regarding 2021 council remuneration expenses. Councillor Parker, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine that council receives report FIN 22-09 2021 council remuneration and expenses report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Discussion? We'll call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. We'll continue on to Recreation, Culture, and Parks. This has to do with tender results for a grass cutting contract for municipal park properties. Councillor Govesi, you have that resolution, please.
That council, so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council receive and approve bid from GLC Property Maintenance of Delhi, Ontario for the town of Tillsonburg's grass cutting contract for mowing zones 1 to 4 in the amount of $66,228 2022, $67,572.96 2023, and $68,924.52 2024, exclusive of applicable taxes, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Govesi. Discussion from members of council, please. We'll start with the mover, Councillor Govesi, then I have Councillor Esseltine, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dave. The company that it's recommended to award this to had a significantly lower tender, like almost alarmingly lower. So I would have concerns. Did you go over it with them? I would have concerns that maybe something's been missed.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gilvacy, I did have the same flag wave when we reviewed the quotes. That follow-up led to a discussion with the bidder. We looked at the bid both in terms of the size of the company, the equipment they operate. One of the points that was made was sometimes the equipment was wider. They wouldn't have to spend as much time on the fields in certain spots, as well as their experience. That led to following up with two references in particular, which are very large organizations within Norfolk County. Both those references came back positive. So it was very challenging for me to say otherwise, to disqualify them. I couldn't disqualify them, recognizing that it appears that they know their business, and we're getting a good bid.
If I may continue through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dave. So different company, an entirely different company than the one the town currently has? Okay.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
I'm just confirming that. If I may follow up through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dave. So the last time this happened, there were a lot of problems in year one, because it was very unclear who was weed eating the fences around the ball diamonds, who was weed eating underneath the bleachers, like say around a porta potty post. The dog park was another issue. Who was cutting the grass in the dog park, who was weed eating the fence around the dog park. Has this all been clearly defined as to whose responsibility this is in the zones?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would respond by saying that those were clear gaps in previous contracts that we made really strong attempts to close within the scope of how the RFP was positioned, how it went out. Things from commitments around the speed, the type of equipment used, the mowing activities following weather in particular, whether they were off on their own and just mowing and creating hay rows, the health and safety programs of the bidders, and even publicly identifying who the contractors are to members of the public, with the thinking that, hey, if they're doing a good job and the public knows it, good for them. There were a lot of things like that were taken into consideration. And then on the flip side, the penalties were also clarified very strongly and reinforced, that anything related to non-performance, there is clear position on that, as well as how we would follow up as staff managing the contract.
Thank you.
Councillor Esseltine, I believe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my questions are very much like what Councillor Gilvacy just asked. So thank you very much.
Anything for Councillor Rosehart, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Drobish. You really didn't answer Gilvacy's question. Who is doing the weed eating? The town around the fences and the bleachers, or the contractor that we're hiring?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the town is going to be taking over the ball field surfaces and those fence lines immediately surrounding the ball field. We already have staff on the ball fields managing the dirt surfaces, which led to conflict between when the mowing was done and when the dirt surface management was being done. We also found things like damage to the fence lines that we could not substantiate with any clear definition, where we as staff, we do have equipment. Council may recall equipment purchases last June, where we did refine our equipment purchase, and we now have equipment that is suited to mowing the ball fields, which will work for this, so that we can maintain both the dirt surfaces of the ball fields themselves, as well as that immediate fence line. Outside the playing surface of that ball field, the contractors will be mowing around and doing the bleachers.
A follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
So can I ask a question? If we're going to do the ball diamonds, why are we not doing, let's say, take Annandale, for instance. Why would we not just do that whole area ourselves rather than continually bring people from other sections of town to cut the grass in there? Why would we, the town, not just do the whole area? Then there would be no conflict with other grass cutters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rosehart, that's an excellent idea. I think that's something we could certainly consider for the future. I was more than happy to find the efficiencies on the ball playing surfaces now, recognizing the amount of staff time involved, the amount of follow-up time that staff needed, and just shifting that time internally to find that efficiency and better service to residents of the town. If we were to look beyond the scope of the playing surface of the ball field, we might have to look at some extra horsepower in terms of staffing to accomplish that, and perhaps equipment as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now follow up. That was my next question. Are we going to be hiring more staffing? But at this time, you're saying we will not be?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, Councillor Rosehart.
So being in business and knowing I have to go out and buy my own lawnmowers and stuff and know the cost of looking after my own properties, I'm struggling with the price. The equipment's gone up, gas has gone up. Hauling the stuff here from Delhi, it'll be a cost. Wages have gone up, insurance has gone up. I'm really struggling with the lower price and the unknown. I understand we get good references. We've had that before in the past, has come to be a nightmare for the town. And I'm just wondering why we're not sticking with the people that we know that have done the job, pay taxes in our town, contribute and donate lots to our community. We constantly say, please shop at home, please shop at home. And looking within our own facilities, have we tried over the last 2 years to try to cut back and save money as well? So I guess I'm saying I'm struggling because nothing has gone down in price except this grass cutting. And I'm struggling with that price. I just don't know what to think about it. And I'm just wondering, why would we not look closer at home, knowing the people that we've had and the jobs that they've done?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rosehart, I can well appreciate your position very well, as a matter of fact. And I felt it was incumbent on staff to present the bids as presented. And should council, in their wisdom, decide to go in a different direction, that is certainly council's prerogative.
Thank you. I'm going to struggle going with the lowest bid because of the past. And I've sat in this chair a long time, and I'd rather deal with the people that I know and that contribute back to our community and that live in our community and that rent in our community and donate back in our community. Thank you very much, Dave.
There are other questions regarding the recommendation and, excuse me, the resolution that's on the floor and the supporting documentation included in the report? The agreement's not part of the report. I fully respect and plan to endorse a resolution that even over the second lowest bidder will demonstrate probably close to $150,000 in savings over a 3-year time frame. That's what I consider giving back to the stakeholders and the residents of the community. But it's predicated on the grass cutting being done properly. So my question, very similar to facility cleaning, a recent conversation. Is there an exit strategy if the anticipated quality of work is not satisfactory?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have ability within the scope of the contract to both penalize and exit from the contract should we need to. Should that happen, we would certainly look to the other bidders who would come down who have also bid to see if they would be interested in coming back to us. I think that the challenge in looking at a bid with that number on it, which is so different from the other bids, is that I don't know their business. I don't know what their overhead costs are. I don't know what is involved. What I could do is follow the steps that the reasonable steps that I could take to find assurances that this company was able and willing to perform the bid as priced.
Yeah, the answer to the question is that operationally, we're protected in any signature that will arrive on an agreement that this is recommending. That's all I was looking for. I put my faith in our leadership. But I think asking the question demonstrates due diligence. That's all. Okay, any further questions or comments from members of council? The resolution that's on the floor, and Councilor Rosehart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dave. I'd just like to make a comment. All those people that are doing contracts right now are out there bidding on other contracts. So what happens if we can't find someone to fill that space when this contractor doesn't hold up to its deal and we can't find anybody because they're already committed and have all their equipment that they need and didn't bring any more on board? Where would we go then?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Rosehart, my response would be that we did get 10 different bidders bidding on the project, on this scope of work. My feeling is that there is a lot of work available and there is a lot of demand available within that industry that I think we would have somebody able to fill in on fairly short notice based on what I could see within that industry.
Thank you.
Okay, anything final? Prepare to call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? When opposed, the resolution is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Drobich. So we move to any new business. Consideration of committee minutes, the various minutes there. Councilor Luciani, you have the resolution, please.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Barris that the following council committee minutes be received as information. February 17th, 2022, Tillsonburg Airport Advisory Committee minutes. March 23rd, 2022, Affordable and Attainable Housing Advisory Committee minutes. April 5th, 2022, Tillsonburg 150 Ad Hoc Committee minutes. April 6th, 2022, Cultural Heritage and Special Awards Committee minutes. April 7th, 2022, Parks, Beautification, and Cemeteries Advisory Committee minutes.
Thank you, Councilor Luciani. Questions or comments on any of those items received as information? Councilor Gavesi, please.
I have a couple quick questions. The first one is to Councilor Esseltine. So through you, Mayor, to Esseltine. What day is the parade? Is that on July 1st as well for the 150th?
Yes, it is, as far as I know. Yeah, I'm not on that committee. Councillor Deputy Mayor Barris is on the Canada 150 committee.
And the answer is yes, the parade is for July 1st.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and this is for the Affordable Housing Committee. So I think Councillor Esseltine, you're on this one, and Councillor Parker. My question is, like, obviously more and more there's a need for affordable housing due to the costs and the pressure on housing. I was wondering if your committee has ever had a discussion, and I heard this for the first time in the news the other day, about affordable housing that's rent to own. It just might be, I'm just trying to think like out of the box. So I'm curious if your committee has had any discussions on this regard at all.
I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor. The committee hasn't had full in-depth conversations about rent to own. Primarily, we've been working with the county about the affordable housing initiative and the fund, and through that, any funding that's available through the county for that. We haven't had impactful discussions about rent to own. It's something that we can discuss at a future meeting, but no, we have not had full in-depth conversations about it.
Thank you. I was just curious. I had been thinking about it for a while, and then I did hear about a project somewhere, but I missed where it was, but it was in Canada, a project that they were looking at doing that was rent to own. I feel that there's maybe pride in ownership, and it's just maybe another way at viewing this that may give people an opportunity that, you know, want to move into home ownership, and it's completely unattainable at this point. Thank you. Thanks.
Just as a follow-up that, because in the well-defined aspect of quote unquote rent to own, it has not been, I concur with Councillor Parker, but in a more out of that box approach to rent to own, I think there's been, along with the County of Oxford, as Councillor Parker has indicated, chair of that committee, doing a great job, is that renting and having the capacity to get to ownership as far as the transitional aspect of housing, both in attainable housing and affordable housing, rent, there are people in our community right now who rented, who are now owning, and so in the quote unquote rent to own inventory, I would concur, and we should have that discussion. But a lot of the focus will ultimately go from a renting to the capacity to owning. Further questions on any of the committee report materials? We'll call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? The resolution is carried. Through the resolution to receive, thank all the committee members and the volunteers for their continued support for the progress and of course for the community strategic initiatives of the community. Conservation Authority minutes. Councillor Govesi, you have that resolution, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Luciani that council receives the Long Point Region Conservation Authority Board of Directors annual general meeting minutes of March 4th, 2022, and the Long Point Region Source Protection Authority minutes of April 7th, 2022 as information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Govesi. Discussion on those? Deputy Mayor, did you have any summary comment that you'd like?
No, but I'm here to answer questions. If anybody has anything, most of this is housekeeping. I will comment on the Source Protection Authority. That's an annual review, that report that the Conservation Authority has just to ensure that we do have safe sources of water for drinking and for good water. Open for questions.
Well, seeing none, but thank you very much for that update. I'll call the question. Received as information. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. And just real quickly, patience, Councillor Esseltine, before we move to notice of motions, I'm going to just get back to Deputy Mayor's question regarding the recommended time frame between a third dose and a fourth dose. And I'm just going to now read so that I'm actually sharing the factual information from Southwest Public Health, is that we're talking about eligible individuals. So you still have to be eligible under a certain criteria to get a fourth dose. And if you've had your third dose, it is advised. Now the word is advised to wait 5 months between third, and that's 140 days actually on a separate chart. 5 months between third and fourth dose for maximum efficacy. However, a fourth dose can be administered as early as 3 months. So 3 would be your minimum. 5 is recommended since your third dose, and that's consistent with other recommendations that I was angling through as we were discussing. So thank you for the question, and that would be the response once again under the vaccine section of swpublichealth.ca. And we move to notice of motions. Notice of motion brought before council at their 28th of March meeting. Councillor Esseltine with the seconder. The floor is yours.
Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rosehart. And then this is the motion, that plans be put in place for council members and staff to return to council chambers for regularly scheduled council meetings as soon as possible, and in accordance with the end of the COVID-19 pandemic as determined by the provincial government. At this time, the provincial government has stated that Ontario COVID-19 public health measures and advice and all remaining measures, directives, and orders are to end by April 27th, 2022. Until such time, a hybrid option will continue to be available for individuals speaking to agenda items who are unable to attend in person, citing health or distance concerns. With the provincial statement in mind, and as per the town's procedural bylaw, section 5.3, which reads, electronic meetings for both open and closed meetings will be permitted in the following circumstances: during a pandemic and in certain emergency situations. The provincial government's declaration supports the town's return to open in-person meetings of council and council committees. And further, having been advised that the recently approved hybrid work policy could result in staff not being available to attend in-person meetings or to complete other tasks for which in-person attendance at town facilities is important, that council requests a staff report outlining revisions to the hybrid work policy that will assure council and the community that staff attendance at town facilities is considered an important and often in the best interest of the municipality. This report to be on the council agenda for its first meeting in May. Should Southwestern Public Health issue regulations requiring in-person public meetings to cease because of continuance or reoccurrence of COVID-19, councillors and staff will return to the full hybrid meeting option for the required period of time specified by public health. If I could speak to that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Okay, so looking again then at the procedural bylaw, it says that electronic meetings for both open and closed meetings will be permitted in the following circumstances: during a pandemic and in certain emergency situations. And this has allowed council to move into virtual meetings since the early stages of the pandemic. But this doesn't say that electronic meetings have to be held during the pandemic, only that they can be held. And there are a significant number of meetings, events, activities happening openly in communities and in the province, and it's important for us to plan and prepare for this with regard to our council and committees. Decisions regarding the end of the pandemic could come from the provincial government or the federal government or even the World Health Organization. But this province has issued a statement saying that Ontario COVID-19 public health measures and advice, all remaining measures, directives, and orders are to end on April 27th, 2022. This would certainly indicate a winding down of the pandemic and suggest that we should be moving forward. We could plan for in-person meetings beginning in May. I think it's important that we prepare for a return to normal operations and council and committee meetings in person, and that as per pre-COVID-19 practices, in-person meetings should be the norm. In preparation for this, staff and council will need to refresh on how we do in-person meetings of council and committees, and we'll work toward including audio, video streaming, and telecasting on Rogers TV as soon as that first meeting of council in May occurs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Move seconded, circulated. Councillor Levese, you've got a question or comment, please?
I have a question. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Asseltine. Firstly, I will be supporting the motion. I think it's important that we do get back into council chambers. I've had some in-person meetings, and obviously the dynamics is much different. My question though is the one thing that I feel moving forward that's going to be different is if you have a bad cold. If you have a bad cold and you cannot attend in person, I mean, obviously, for obvious reasons, COVID's not necessarily going to go away. It's going to be endemic. So, you know, people will, you know, you're exposed. I mean, living, you're going to be exposed. So you may test positive for COVID once in a while. Is it your intent to always have the option in those situations that you would be able to come in virtually, or are you just looking at it completely in person?
Okay, I think that's an issue for council to decide. And when we look back and when we were always meeting in person, if someone was ill or had a cold or whatever, the option would be to not attend the meeting. So I think if we're going to, we do have that in for that people attending from a distance, which wouldn't include staff that live out town because they can attend here all the time. But if people are presenting on an issue or a policy or something from a distance, that could be done virtually, I guess would be the right word. As for staff and illness, I think that's something that maybe council could decide on what we want to do with that.
Okay, yeah, I guess maybe it could form part of the report. And I'm not just speaking about staff. I had a bad cold a couple of weeks ago. And like, I wouldn't have wanted to commit, especially because there's a different mindset now with regards to COVID, but I also wouldn't want to miss a meeting either, just because I wasn't feeling well, but it wouldn't be fair for me to come in. So like, I mean, I wholeheartedly support going back, but I also think that it's a new norm going forward, that we're not necessarily fully returning to like pre, March 2020.
It would be quite easy to add that in by changing that second paragraph that reads, a hybrid option will continue to be available for individuals, we say, speaking for agenda items who are unable to attend in person, citing health or distance concerns. And we could just take that out and have it read, a hybrid option will continue to be available for attendees who are unable to present in person, citing health and distance concerns, something like that. It would be easy enough to write into that.
Okay, thank you. But otherwise, I have to say, I think this is well written, and I'm glad you brought this forward. So thank you. That was my only concern, because I do think that is like, we all want to go back to normal, but I also feel that there's a bit of tweaks moving forward, and I think you even see that with the government. And they're talking about X amount of sick days, and even in factories and manufacturer settings, people are told to stay home if they're sick. So.
Further, Councillor Parker, sorry about that.
Through you, Mayor Molnar, to Councillor Esseltine. I'll address the first to Councillor Esseltine, and then I'll have a question for the CAO. I 100% agree with the first three paragraphs of your resolution, especially now if you're going to amend to allow for the hybrid option across the board. The one question that I do have for you in regards to the third paragraph with the hybrid work policy, it was just last meeting that this hybrid work policy was accepted by council. I'm just wondering what revisions you want to see to the work policy, because I don't think staff has even implemented the policy yet, knowing who's working from home. The other part with that is from my understanding from the policy that we passed at the last meeting, that staff would make themselves available for coverage in person in both the customer service center as well as the offices upstairs, as well as for council meetings, whether it be in person or hybrid. You're on mute, Councillor Esseltine.
Okay, thanks for the questions then. So initially, what kinds of things would I personally like to know about the hybrid work policy that might impact this meeting in person? So, okay. I thought when we approved the hybrid work policy, we didn't have a lot of discussion. And subsequently, when I was putting together the motion that I have just come forward today, then I heard from both the clerk and the CAO that it wouldn't be necessary, that having people attend in person wouldn't necessarily apply to staff who worked in the hybrid work policy environment. And so I was concerned about that, because I think it's really important for staff to attend council and committee meetings in person. So that was part of my thinking here. So the information that would like to have, knowing this, that I didn't have before when we voted on the hybrid work policy then, was how many staff will be participating in the hybrid work policy. Like if it's 100 people, it's a different thing than if it's 35 people. So, and it impacts the organization differently. So I'd be interested in knowing how many staff are looking at doing this and how many days they would work from home. Now we had 3 as the maximum days they would work from home. But and along with, and how many staff will continue to work regular days. I was interested in knowing if there will be sufficient staff working in town facilities to ensure that staff feel safe and supported in the workplace, because I understand that that's a concern. And will staff be committed to attending regular public meetings? And will the hybrid work policy provide enough opportunities for staff to create connections with other staff and with people in the community? Those kinds of things I was interested in knowing, and I don't think they were addressed in the hybrid work policy when it came forward for council to consider. And I didn't appreciate it until we got into this, having council meet in person.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor. So
That floor is yours because you also have a couple more coming. I think.
So I guess a question to you, Councillor Esseltine, is would a motion to reconsider not be more appropriate than reopening it through this resolution?
I did consider both options, the motion to reconsider or how it fit in with this. It could go, I guess it could go either way. We could take that paragraph out of the prior motion and ask for a motion to reconsider. I thought maybe the things that people would be interested in addressing with the hybrid work policy could be done this way as well, without the potential to lose the hybrid work policy altogether.
Just a follow up. I would feel more comfortable with this resolution if the final paragraph was removed and we dealt with it separately through a motion to reconsider. My next question would be to CAO Pratt. Do we foresee any issues with staff coverage for council meetings or even town offices at this point? Because I thought it was quite clear in the policy that was passed by this council at our last meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Parker, through the chair. So the only issues that I would foresee would be any issues even if we're having in-person meetings, such as there's only a certain amount of staff trained to run the live feed. We have 3 or 4 people staff, so if all of them were sick in the workplace, we'd have that issue with in-person meeting. But further to your question, no, when we run the hybrid work model, we staff accordingly. We have enough supervisors, so if people get sick, there's still supervisors in the workplace. We have adequate staff in the office to provide the level of customer service that is expected.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. I believe that there's two portions to this from what I see, and Councillor Parker just brought that forward. One is to get a grasp on where staff is with the hybrid policy. And I think it's staff is working on that. I don't think it's been completed yet. The second part is returning. I am at this stage opposed to returning, and I'll explain why. There are many people in this community that look to councils as leaders of the community, which we're elected to be leaders of the community. And leading by example is great, is good. We're doing our job for those who are vulnerable to the pandemic. There are people now that will probably the rest of their lives wear masks because they have fought various ailments and they don't want to risk getting sick. I don't know if I am qualified to decide whether or not the province is in a position to go without masks. But I believe that we do have that resource, as the mayor said earlier, not just with Southwest Public Health, but with Ontario. Because when Ontario lifts the restriction and says, take your masks off and go back to work as you did pre-COVID, fine, let's go back. But I believe at this stage, we're a little premature to do that. I do not believe that we're premature in asking staff for a report on how the hybrid system will work. And I believe that postponing this and not looking at it in the next month or two to return is probably the best way. It gives staff an opportunity to put bit to bit together their hybrid package, and our council, I'm sorry, management, to put together the policy on the hybrid package and then present it to council. And at that time, council, with the assurances that Southwest Public Health and the provincial public health says it's okay to go back, then it's okay to go back. But primarily, as I said earlier, my concern is, as leaders of the community, we should be leading. Just got back last weekend from a conference, in-person conference, and spoke with many municipalities around Ontario. And there are very, very few that are meeting in person. Most are meeting still digitally in a hybrid situation. So it's a little early yet. I believe it'll happen before the next few months or few weeks. We'll be back to where we were pre-COVID, but I do believe it's a little early. So I won't be supporting the presentation, or at least a resolution as presented, unless it's separated, and I may support part of it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Any final questions from members of council? Councillor Luciani, please.
Just a few comments, Mr. Mayor. I'm in agreement with Councillor Govesi. It'd be really nice to get everybody back in council. And I do support that side of what Councillor Esseltine is saying, but at the same point in time, I'm also hearing what Deputy Mayor Barris is saying, is that we are still, and I'm seeing it all around me right now, we are still encountering an awful lot of illness. Now, by the end of the month, who knows? I don't know. But I would hate to think that when the provinces basically opened it up, that we're allowed to have a hybrid meeting, I would hate to think that we would basically turn down that option. I would hope that that would always be in there. That was something that even at the very beginning, when you had a cold or you're away or something, but you did have the time to have a meeting or attend a meeting, it allowed you to do it, or would have allowed you to do it, but it wasn't available then. It's there now. We have dealt pretty well with COVID through this point in time. We've handled our meetings fairly well. We've had no problem with representation from staff and from council. I think it's worked fairly well. I'm not so certain that having a member of staff sitting within physically within a council chamber is going to give me any more of a definitive answer than an auditory call in that they're doing. I can still get the same results. I almost look like our meetings are, the vote is between the council members. It's the the 1-800 reach for the helpline, and all of our staff people are there and available for that. And I think as long as they're available, I'm happy. Saying that, yeah, there is times that we do need our staff available for meetings, but I do want to just make sure that we're not going to lose that hybrid option on that. Thanks.
Anything further? Councillor Rosehart. Councillor Rosehart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I've been out here for a long time working just like the rest of the world, trying to keep things moving, try to keep our town moving. And we're all busy out here working just to keep things going. And sometimes I feel like sitting here talking to a machine, that I'm not up there doing my job, because that's where the people need to see us. They need to see us out here. We're out here, but we're not up there. We're not communicating with staff. I feel much better when I can sit and talk to staff, and feel much better just being there, knowing that I'm doing my job. Sometimes I sit at home and think I'm doing my job. I don't feel that way. I feel getting out and being out there and letting the people know that we are still working for them. Yes, we're working here on a computer, but it's not as personal. It's not the same. I can't run my store from my chair in my house. It's not the same. You have to be out there to communicate with the public, the people that are working every day to support us, to support the community. And I just feel that I'm not doing my job by not being up in those chambers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me that.
Oh, very good. All good comments. It's, I think, indicative of the fact that it's remains a challenging time. There's a resolution on the floor. Without any, are we prepared to advance the discussion of the resolution? I'm prepared to call the question then. All those in favor? Councillor Esseltine, please. We've got, what is your, that's why I'm asking, is there anything further to the resolution on the floor? Please. You're on mute. Mute.
Sorry about that.
You're
Okay.
good, you're good.
Thank you. So I'd like to amend the resolution then, the second paragraph to read, a hybrid option will continue to be available for those who are unable to attend in person, citing health or distance concerns.
Is that different than what's there?
Yeah, because it doesn't, it says until.
Oh, you're just talking, you're basically eliminating the aspect of speaking to agenda items?
Yes, and until such time, the first three words, and a hybrid option will continue to be available for individuals, and then take out speaking to agenda items for individuals who are unable to attend in person, citing
And I
health.
had Councillor Rosehart. So the mover is fine because it's her resolution. If the seconder agrees, then that can stand as an amendment from the floor for the mover and seconder. If not, then I'll have to. So I'm looking, the easy way is to get a response from Councillor Rosehart.
A question to Penny. What does distance mean when you're saying distance? Because they live
Okay.
far away. They
I
don't
just
have
need to
come
answer, with all due respect, though, I need an answer on whether or not you second, you know, and you may not want to answer it, but it's tough to speak to a resolution when the resolution's not on the floor. So latitude provided, Councillor Esseltine, perhaps assist us all.
Okay, with distance, I mean that they're at a distance, like they're in another province or in another city more than 2 hours away, something like that. I don't mean like 30 minutes away from town, but people who are maybe speaking to an item on the agenda, an expert or someone with special knowledge. I think we could listen to them online.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you. Then I agree.
Okay, that worked then. And I'm glad you asked the question, Councillor Rosehart, because that's not what I thought that actually meant in the terms of COVID-19. Distance has an entirely well-defined separation point. No. So the resolution as amended, then on the floor.
Okay.
Make sure that we're completely understanding of what's in the resolution. And that there's anticipated staff report back in 20 days. I'd be concerned that there's going to be substantive report in 20 days relative to the level of advancement that policy has actually even had the opportunity to take. Council gave direction to create a policy, and then within a couple of meetings, we're kind of questioning, you know, the process. And I'd be concerned, but bringing a report back, nothing wrong with that. I would anticipate a proactive report from our leadership team when they've had the opportunity to actually engage and get some of this information together. I'm going to be, and I don't know, I guess I can ask the question is to Mr. Pratt, or would that, do you even have, would you have the capacity to respond to the requests in the resolution by the 20th, irrespective of the time frame, but most importantly, to whether or not quantitative information would be available based on how the implementation of the policy has developed to date?
So your question and what Councillor Esseltine would like in the report may be two different things. Am I answering your question or what Councilor Esseltine wants in the report?
I looked at the report, or looked at the resolution, revisions to there will assure council and the community that staff, I mean, you've got to respond to the direction of council. But based on that, some of that I would suggest has to do with uptake, rollout, status report of that program / policy. Has it even had enough time to develop to bring a substantial update report back to council?
The operational portion of that report is still rolling out.
So I would, I'm concerned that the material, even if supported, the May 20th date's probably not. But it's council's direction. I just want to read this very carefully. That plans be put in place for council members and staff to return to the council chambers for regularly scheduled council meetings as soon as possible. One hand, we have a May 9th date. Next is I've got as soon as possible. And in accordance with the end of the COVID-19 pandemic as determined by the provincial government. And then at this time, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that along with the amendment in paragraph 2, that the text and wording is remaining consistent. Electronic meetings, appreciate that. And I think the ultimate goal is to ensure that available safe access. And I guess if I have a question either for Mr. Pratt or for the Director of Corporate Services in her capacity as the clerk, is we currently have the capacity for hybrid meetings. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, very good, everyone. Then we're prepared to call the question. It's Councillor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be prepared to amend that, certainly the date of the report from the CAO. I just wondered if some of the information we're looking for, like I know you're in the process of bringing this together, and I wondered if some of the information we're looking for that you would want a response to that before you get too far into that program. So I'd be interested in your whether you would prefer to get that information to us before the whole program is underway, or wait until it's underway and then still be receptive to maybe changes that council might want to see. If I could ask that of Mr. Pratt.
So, Mr. Mayor, through the chair to Councillor Esseltine, as staff, we're confused and we need some guidance. So this resolution is asking for a recently approved hybrid work policy, and it's talking about how staff won't be in attendance or could not be in attendance, and that council requests that staff prepare reports, happy to prepare a report outlining revisions to the hybrid work policy that will assure council and the community that staff is in attendance. I talked to Councillor Esseltine, staff will be in attendance for council meetings, committee meetings, if you guys go back in person. That's already been established. I have nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so an opportunity. Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, I'm ready to, that's your resolution. Unless there's some substantive change, I'm prepared to call the question, but Councillor Esseltine, you get the last word.
So I was thinking, I was wishing I'd asked for more information on the hybrid work policy before we approved it, and I didn't. So I was looking to get that information now. And it's not, I guess it's not even available now, the number of people participating, things like that, because that impacts whether or not the program works well for the community, I guess. So it's either take that out altogether or ask for basic information now. But you're thinking of the only information you can give us is that, yes, staff will attend.
Or perhaps, Councillor Esseltine, subject to council's approval and the expectation either at this or any revised date that you would entertain, that there would be an opportunity for you to consider informational material as contained in that, and then advance further discussion if you or others considered it appropriate.
So with that, would then I take this paragraph out, the hybrid work, and we would just be.
With respect, Counselor, it's your resolution. It's been
I know,
seconded by
I know.
Counselor Rosart and it's been on the floor and it was pre-circulated to the community. Of that, I truly appreciate.
Okay, so right now, all I'm going to take off then is this report to be on the council agenda for the first meeting in May. So we're still looking for additional information about the hybrid work policy, but it's open-ended as to when you get us that information.
I got to look to Counselor Rosart.
Okay, let's stop taking tough out, Penny, but I'll agree to that.
Okay, we have a finalized resolution properly moved and seconded. The amended, although amended on the floor by the original mover and seconder, involve the advancement of the hybrid option to continue. And there was additional wording there. And then the elimination of the set time frame, but the expectation that a forthcoming report would be advanced to council. Then we're prepared to call the question. Thanks, Councillor Esseltine and Councillor Rosart. All those in favor? Opposed? And resolution's carried. Are there any other notice of motions to advance before the public for the next regularly scheduled meeting of council? Seeing none, leave. We are at bylaws. Councillor Luciani, you have a resolution regarding bylaws on this evening's meeting, please.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Barris that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 3295 is amended, and a bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale for the lands described as Block 25, Plan 41-M155, and a bylaw to close a portion of a municipal public roadway known as Grandview Drive be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thank you, Councillor Luciani. Any discussion on those bylaws? All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. And the confirmation bylaw for this evening's meeting. It's actually the 19th of April, excuse me. Councillor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gildese, that bylaw 2022-031 to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on April 19th, 2022 be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thank you, Councillor Esseltine. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. Just to confirm that the next regularly scheduled council meeting will be back to Mondays, but it's only in 6 days time, I think. April 25th, it's a council and planning meeting to begin at 6 o'clock on the, as I said, on the 25th of April. Are there any items, additional items from members of council that they'd like to share with council, leadership team, and the general public? Councillor Rosart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to address this to Kyle Pratt. There seems to be a problem with the hydro bills that didn't go out last month. I've been getting a lot of people coming in. They're now getting phone calls saying that their hydro is going to be shut off if they don't pay their bill within 5 to 10 days. Or like, should we have not done something, put it in the paper, something that people weren't going to get a hydro bill for the month? It seems to me they mailed them, they're lost at the post office. But I'm wondering, what can we do to better ourselves next time this happens? Because people are very upset, especially the older people who pay their bills, but then are getting phone calls that their hydro is going to be shut off, and they get very upset. I'm wondering, what can we do to better this for them?
Well, first of all, thank you, Councilor Rosart, for bringing that to my attention. I was not aware that this was a concern. No information has crossed my desk on this. No one's called me. So I will be following up with the GM first thing, or tonight even.
Well, and just to follow up on that, they're being charged late fees too, because they haven't paid their bill. So when they do go in, there's a late fee on their bill because it was late paid, and just hope somebody can correct it because it's very nerve wracking for the older people. Thank you.
Anything further? I would suggest that unfortunately I wasn't aware of the situation or the extent of it either. And I think it's a perfect example of why contacting a customer service rep at 519-688-3009 is always an efficient and effective way to address some of these operational items. Anyone else? Any updates in the community that some of our athletic representatives have a handle on? I'm not, you didn't have to. I'm always excited to hear. Councillor Parker, please.
I do have a couple. First, the midget rep team participated at the Tillsonburg Minor Hockey midget rep team participated at the OMHA Championships last weekend and came home with a silver medal, as well as we have two residents, Taylor Campbell and Sherry Adams, that play for the Cambridge Turbos national ringette team. They finished third overall at nationals last weekend as well. So congratulations to those individuals and teams. And I'm sure that there were others participating at provincials, but that's what I have for right now. Thank you.
Anything further from members of council? Just wanted to maybe in closing then share that today was the launch of the new TGO in-town transit system. The amended routes that were required to enhance accessibility, inclusion, and also the expanding community. So there was a great work put in by Ashley and the team in the operations department, supported in the leadership, the continued leadership of the Tillsonburg Transit Advisory Committee. And the numbers that are reflected in the commentary that we've been able to receive is that there's great escalation in the number of the local ridership. I think there was a comment made today by the chair of that committee that she was in conversation with one new resident of the community who had moved into the community and actually sold his automobile because he finds he can get around the community utilizing TGO transit system. And to get to all the areas that he needs to get to. So that was actually a real life story of encouragement as well. So that's what I would conclude with. And I believe the last item of business is a call for adjournment. And Councillor Rosehart, you have that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Gavezi. Oh, sorry. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that the council meeting of April 19, 2022 adjourned at, and I'll get the right time, 7:12, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, PM.
Oh, PM. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Rosehart. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. We will see you in 6 nights at 6 p.m. on the 25th of April. Thanks, everyone, for your attendance. Please stay safe.